Whether this situation has happened to you or it hasn't, let's hope it never does, you'll want to be prepared if this kind of situation does occur in the future. Imagine your child is enrolled at a high-quality childcare program or preschool, and then your worst nightmare happens. Something serious happens, whether a safety citation or an allegation of child abuse by one of the teachers. A parent's worst nightmare, right? And it's hard to think rationally in that kind of situation because your mama bear instincts just take over and you're just overly concerned for your child. Now, it may seem obvious you're going to put your child out of the program, right? Whether it happened to them or it happened to another child. That's a no-brainer. But it's not that simple. Imagine your child has been enrolled there for years. You love the place, your child loves it, you love your child's teachers and the director there, and your child is learning and growing and thriving. Plus, the wait list at other programs is 1 to 2 years long. There's a childcare shortage across the entire country. How can you continue to work without care for your child? Scary situation to be in, right? Hear me out. The most important question you want to ask, either when this type of situation occurs or even in advance while you're touring and exploring different childcare options, is how was the situation handled? Or how would it be handled if something like this occurred? How did the teachers handle it? How did other staff handle it? How did administration handle it? Why? Because as uncomfortable as it is to think about, serious citations or child abuse can happen anywhere, even in the best of programs. Just because someone is an amazing teacher or caregiver doesn't mean that it can't happen. That's the hard truth, and you need to be aware of that reality in order to protect your child. I've seen many teachers over the year that parents absolutely adored, but who unfortunately made poor and inappropriate decisions in how they treated or spoke to the sad reality is this is literally something that could happen anywhere. For example, as a director, I witnessed one of my favorite, most well-loved teachers of 10 years of experience seemed to lose her mind one day and made a really serious mistake that resulted in her being fired and eventually arrested. She never had any issues or complaints from other staff or parents before that time. She was a beloved teacher, so much so that parents were literally in denial that she did anything wrong and were sending her cards and flowers when she got fired and arrested. Just because a serious safety citation hasn't been reported or an abuse allegation hasn't occurred to your knowledge doesn't mean something worthy of being reported hasn't happened. It very well could be that it did and it was swept under the rug, either by the teacher or administration. This is when you sometimes see those kind of situations come to light in the news, where a director and like 3 or 4 teachers are all arrested because there was an incident that they failed to report, or sometimes it never comes to light. Therefore, if a situation does happen, you want to observe and ask how the situation is being handled or how the situation was handled. That is the key. I'm sorry this is not a feel-good video, but if you're naive and think this just isn't something that could happen, I'm telling you this so you can better protect your child. This isn't a topic childcare providers or directors are going to willingly and voluntarily bring up because it is extremely uncomfortable. Story time. A teacher came to me with a very serious allegation about her co-teacher in a toddler classroom of both physical and emotional abuse. The teacher was force-feeding a child with both his bottle and soft food, although the child didn't want to eat and was visibly upset and crying and even choking because the teacher kept shoving food into his mouth while he was hysterically crying. And she was also talking harshly to the child and inappropriately. Now, if I was a sleazy director, or if the teacher was sleazy and wasn't a good teacher, it could have just been easily swept under the rug. Because 1, the child wasn't verbal, and 2, there were no visible signs of abuse or bruises or anything like that. It was easily something that could have been done in a hush-hush sort of way. Either discipline the teacher and just let it go, or fire her and move on. And I know it's scary to think that people would handle a situation like this, but unfortunately it does happen. Also, as a teacher was telling me what had happened, I foresaw the nightmare that would ensue. I knew this was going to blow up and become the biggest you-know-what show in town, or even the state. I knew we were going to be investigated by the state, that they definitely are going to cite us for child abuse. She's going to be investigated by the police and probably arrested, and we're going to be on the news as one of those horror stories that you hear about. I knew it was all coming. Parents are naturally going to be worried and upset and going to be, knocking at my door, coming into my office in droves to find out more details about the situation. And I knew it was going to be one of the most stressful situations of my life, which it was, and I literally started losing my hair during that time. But I still made the ethical decision. When the teacher brought it to my attention, I took the steps that are required by the law. I called my education consultant, I called DCF and I reported it. I called my boss, I fired the teacher immediately, I called the police, and I met with each parent from that classroom the next day to share with them what had happened and about the teacher's termination. And there's plenty of other great directors who would handle the situation in the exact same way. I also knew that there was a chance I would get slack from senior management at my job, who in the past had discouraged me from calling DCF when there were other questionable situations that happened. Scary world, right? And everything that I feared would happen about the arrest in the media and the state citations and all the negative attention and stress, it did indeed happen. I had to go down to the police station, I had to be interviewed, all this stuff. It was horrendous. But believe it or not, when I explained the situation to the child's parents as to what happened, and I told them, of course, I know you'll want to withdraw him, we'll refund your tuition and release the contract and such, I'm so sorry that this happened. They actually said that they wanted to keep him enrolled because they trust our center and that their child is safe here, because this was a situation that could have been easily hidden and covered up. They realized that, but they understood all the steps and actions we took and how seriously we handled the situation, and they decided to keep him enrolled. Do you see where I'm going now? Just because a center doesn't have citations or allegations against it doesn't necessarily mean something inappropriate or unsafe hasn't happened. What is most important is how those situations were handled by teachers and administration, how seriously it was taken, and what steps were taken to address it. So your main takeaways from this video are, number one, when you are exploring childcare options, ask if they've ever encountered a situation like this, whether safety violations or inappropriate behavior from a teacher or an abuse allegation, and how did they and their staff handle it. Or if they say they've never encountered it, give them a scenario and ask how they would respond to it and how they would handle it. And secondly, if your child is already enrolled in a program and a citation or serious allegation occurs, watch and observe how they handle it. It doesn't mean you need to immediately withdraw your child. Actually, it could be a great place for them to remain enrolled because of how seriously the program handles these types of situations. Ask the director what steps they took to address it. Keep in mind, the director may not be able to tell you all the details of what the staff member did, especially if there is an open and ongoing investigation. I know that piece was really hard for parents when I explained that to them and they felt like I wasn't being transparent or I was hiding something. I literally couldn't because it was an open investigation. Also, HR may be advising the director to keep personnel issues private, but the director should be able to clearly articulate how they addressed it and the actions they are taking to prevent anything like this from happening in the future. Based on their answer and how reassuring it is, you can then make a reasonable decision as to how to move forward with your child's enrollment. And of course, if you're not pleased with the outcome and you feel like the situation was minimized or the concerns weren't taken seriously and you just have that maternal instinct and uncomfortable feeling in your gut, then it's probably time to explore other options and withdraw your child. But if they followed all the necessary protocols required by the law and their own center's policy, then your child's enrollment can continue without all the mom guilt that you're endangering your child, but you're reassured that your child is in good hands. If the director and multiple staff members and teachers are let go or are arrested, I would definitely recommend withdrawing them as soon as possible, because that means things have been happening for some time and it's been covered up. I hope this video was helpful. If so, please like and subscribe for more childcare insight and tips, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. Take care now.